Okay, I want to thank you all. For coming to this hastily called press conference. You're going to hear from several members of the legislature. You can see many of my colleagues behind me. More will be coming as the press conference proceeds, representing all of the various ethnic caucuses and special interest caucuses and legislature, representing all of the legislature, the Assembly and the Senate. We're here together to express our outrage at what we have seen displayed in a home in Sacramento, in the River Park area of Sacramento. You can see this display. This is what this conference is all about. And it's not really about this one homeowner, this one home. It's about what this represents to our veterans, what this represents to the 40 million Californians that we represent. And when something like this happens, people of good conscience can't just sit back and keep quiet. Some suggested we should just keep quiet, that what he wants is attention. Well, he got his attention. This has been in the press. Now it's time for us to speak up and say this just isn't right. My name is Marty Block. I represent San Diego in the Senate, the 39th Senate District. I also chair the Legislative Jewish Caucus. But this clearly isn't an issue of any one caucus. This is an issue of all of us in California. I thank my colleagues for being here today. Several of them will make brief comments as we progress. We do stand together in solidarity against what is an unambiguous symbol of hate. The swastikas displayed at this house in River Park tarnish the neighborhood and disrespect and dishonor the memory of tens of thousands of Americans who died at the hands of Hitler's Nazis wearing this same symbol. And we have veterans here today to join us who will also speak to the affront to those who've bravely served our country. This sad display not only insults the veterans, but also who perished in World War II, but also the greatest generation, those people who are still with us today, those now elderly veterans who saw their buddies, their friends die in the face of combat, bodies blown apart. You can only imagine how they feel when they walk past or drive past this River Park house in this neighborhood. It is disgraceful, frankly, to our country to have this symbol up. The evil symbol, of course, also desecrates the memory of 6 million who perished in Hitler's concentration camps and the families of those 6 million. And it immeasurably adds to the pain of those who survived Hitler's camps and who still live with us today, now very elderly themselves, who also have to live with this on the news and this in their community. For them, we speak out today. We have learned that the purveyors of hate tragically often follow their vile speech with criminal acts of terror. We've seen it in France, we've seen it in Copenhagen, we've seen it around the world. I pray that's not going to be the case in this instance, and that Sacramento is spared that. To be clear, we all recognize that our cherished freedom of speech allows even the most hateful and ignorant among us to spew their vicious venom. So we know he has a right to do this. This is his house. If he defaced someone else's house, it'd be criminal vandalism. It'd be a hate crime. You have a right to deface your own house. But because you have a right to do it, that doesn't make it right. So my colleagues and I call on the owner of this house to voluntarily remove this vulgar display. It's time to remove this disgusting display of racism from our community. It's time to take it down. I now call on a few members of the Senate and Assembly who are behind me who will speak. Is Kevin here yet? He is not. Okay, first representing the California Black Caucus, Assemblymember Reggie Jones-Sawyer. Reggie?
The California Legislative Black Caucus stand in solidarity on this issue. For us, all symbols of hate is disgusting and disgraceful. For us, last year, we took on the Confederate flag, which for African Americans symbolizes keeping people oppressed, keeping people in slavery, and ultimately looking at people as less than human. We believe that the Nazi swastika has that same representation, that same kind of connotation which says that a certain group of people are less than human, but more important, you can do anything you want to them. More important, that you can defile them anyway, whether it's in concentration camps, lynchings, or denying them access to education, denying them access to equal opportunities. And so when we see these symbols in our community, no matter how lawful it is that they can have freedom of speech and have that, we have to remember how damaging these symbols can be in our society, and they have to be outlawed forever. I know we can't, but we need to get to the conscience of our better souls to say that we must stop this type of symbolism in our communities. And we too stand with the Jewish Legislative Caucus in asking that this owner take it down, and take it down today. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Sawyer. We've just been joined with the pro tem of the California Senate. He will say a few words for us. I know he's got to move on to the floor session after this, but I introduce to you Pro Tem Kevin De Leon.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Senator Marty Block, and thank you so very much for your leadership heading up the Jewish caucus here in the California State Legislature. Before each and every one of you, you see an amazing tapestry, a beautiful mosaic of different ethnicities, which makes up the fabric of who we are as a state. Before you just witnessed and heard the chair of the Black Legislative Caucus. You have the Latino Legislative Caucus, as well as the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus, and an array of many other individuals representing their districts throughout the state of California, but more importantly, representing their origins of where they came from originally, or where their grandparents, parents, or great-grandparents came from. That is the beauty of this state. This symbol that was displayed, that is being displayed, the swastika symbol, the anti-Semitic symbol, is an affront not just to the Jewish American community, not just to the generations of those who lost their lives in the concentration camps in Europe and throughout, but to all individuals, and especially the men and women who lost their lives, who gave their lives in World War II. Now, obviously, everyone has a right under this great Constitution of the greatest country on planet Earth to display what they want to display, even if it's offensive. But nonetheless, understanding who we are as a state and what our morals are and what our values, what we adhere to, it is incredibly, incredibly insensitive, offensive, and quite frankly, it's just straight out racist. It's racist to display this type of anti-Semitic symbol. That's an affront to all individuals in California. I stand here in solidarity as the leadership of the Senate with my good friend, the chair of the Jewish American Caucus of the legislature, and all the individuals right behind us. Democrats as well as Republicans together, united to stand in solidarity with the Jewish caucus here and to tell this individual that we won't stand for this at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. And to be clear, we have members of all the caucuses here. We also have the Republican leader of the Senate here with us. We have members of both houses here. So our disgust at this is bicameral, it's bipartisan, and we speak again as one in solidarity. Now from the Latino caucus, we have Assembly Member Jose Medina.
Thank you, Senator Block. I'm Assembly Member Jose Medina, representing the 61st Assembly District in Riverside. When neo-Nazis came to Riverside and stood in front of the Home Depot protesting day laborers, I and hundreds of other Riverside residents came out in protest of their presence there in front of the Home Depot in Riverside. When they marched in front of the synagogue in Riverside, we again came out to say that Riverside is a tolerant city and the neo-Nazis had no place in Riverside. So today, again, I am proud to stand here with Senator Block to call upon the owner of this residence in Sacramento to take down the swastikas. And representing the Latino caucus, it is my honor to be here and standing in solidarity with my fellow senators and assembly members.
Thank you, Assemblymember Ms. Medina. Do we have Susan here yet? Okay, representing the Women's Caucus, we don't have Hannah Beth, but Lois, would you say a few words? Sure. Senator Lois Wolk.
Thank you very much, Senator Block. On behalf of the Women's Caucus, we too stand in solidarity with the other caucuses and members of the Senate and the Assembly in denouncing the insensitivity of this display. I have 2 grandchildren who live close by, so I have a chance to watch them grow up. They are 3 and 6. And one of the most extraordinary things is that they're learning language, and they're learning what language means, and they're learning about language that hurts. And in order to grow up, the parents and the grandparents, we have to explain to them what the impact of language is and symbols. And it is not an easy one to explain to a 6-year-old what this symbol means, other than it is one of hate, and it is one that should never, ever be so public as this. So on behalf of the Women's Caucus, we'd like to say we are in solidarity with our colleagues, and we would ask him to remove this truly offensive symbol immediately.
Thank you, Senator Wolk. Representing now, we just have a few more speakers. Representing the API Caucus, Asian Pacific Islander Caucus, we have newly elected Senator Janet Nguyen.
I just want to be here to represent the API Caucus and to join with my colleagues and the Jewish Caucus that this is offensive. Having come from a family, having escaped communism, I know that any kind of symbol, hatred symbol like this, it's racist. I'll tell you, in my community, where there was a display of a communist leader, 50,000 people came out in over 2 months to ask the gentleman to take that photo down. It reminds us of how we have died and lived for freedom and democracy. Just because you have the right to display hatred messages and photos, you don't have the right to continue your hatred against everybody else. We live in a great state. We live in a great country. We're asking the homeowner, take down the photo. Tear down the photos.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Senator Nguyen. We now have a member of a veteran, someone who has served his country with great valor and who now represents many of the veterans organizations here in Sacramento, who's going to talk to you about the impact on veterans. Again, we'll finish in about 2 or 3 minutes so my colleagues can get to floor session. But I'd like to introduce Pete Conity. Pete?
Hi there. My name is Pete Conity. I spent 21 years in the Army. I served in Vietnam. And I was privileged to serve with the 101st Airborne Division. And in Vietnam, we had soldiers from the 101st who had served in World War II. And the 101st Airborne Division was the first Army unit to discover the death camps in Germany. And in doing research, over 40 Army units discovered the death camps in Germany. And they learned about Nazism and what it really meant. And they also learned if you don't stop hate and evil at the beginning, it's going to keep going. So we need to call upon this gentleman to voluntarily take it down. I'm also joined by Lorraine Plass, representing the American veterans, and she served in Germany during the Vietnam War. So she's very familiar with this too. So all veterans, the 20 veterans groups I represent, over 1 million veterans, we call upon this individual to take it down now. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. And I know many of my colleagues would also like to speak to this because they all feel so passionately about it. But in the interest of time, we have one more speaker, then a wrap-up. Now, any members who want to stay and speak to the press one-on-one, if you all have additional questions, are, of course, welcome to do so. But our last speaker brings a unique perspective. Mark Grossman was the Director of Communications Press Secretary to Cesar Chavez. And he's going to speak about Cesar and how he and his family served our country and how he might feel at this repugnant symbol. Mark Grossman.
Thank you, Senator Block. Cesar had two cousins he grew up with outside Yuma, Arizona, Rudolph Rico and Lawrence Horta. They both died fighting with the U.S. Army in Europe during World War II to help liberate Europe from the Nazi tyranny. One of Cesar's brothers-in-law, Guillermo Favela, served with the 101st Airborne, parachuted behind Nazi lines on D-Day at Normandy, and fought through the Battle of the Bulge. He was awarded 2 Purple Hearts and the Bronze Star. Vile displays such as this really cross every racial, ethnic, economic line. And that's why the United Farm Workers of America is proud to stand with Senator Block in calling on this man to take down this vile symbol. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And we thank our brothers and sisters in labor, as well as all of the colleagues here, for their comments. Again, because unfortunately they need to move to session, many will have to leave, but I'm willing to stay and take questions, and then we'll have one-on-ones for those who want to do them. Question?
How do you legally deal with the conflict between freedom of speech and hate speech? I mean, how can you actually get this guy to take it down legally?
Well, we can't force him to take it down. We have to express our outrage, though, that it's up. We can't remain silent in the face of this. Now, having said that, the community can put pressure on this gentleman because it's just not right. You have representatives of the entire state of California here, representatives of those who served our country so well, asking him to take it down. We all honor free speech. We all know how important that is to all of us, all the groups we represent. So no, we don't want to violate his free speech rights, but we want to say to him, it is just wrong, take it down. There is action in the community. There are meetings taking place in the Sacramento community, and they will be communicating with this gentleman.
You mentioned a moment ago that you're hoping the community will put pressure on him. Are you concerned at all that could lead to some sort of violence against this person?
I would certainly hope not. I mean, the Nazi symbol, the swastika, stands for violence. We stand for peace. If there are no other questions, members are available for one-on-ones, and I want to thank you all for attending.